Hello and welcome back to the mini-series on riding different terrains. As you can see here, this episode is riding gravel, and I'm out in Morocco in this particular bit of footage, riding various different types of gravel tracks, and I'll be talking you through bits and pieces of what I'm doing. So in these particular tracks like this, it's a fairly fast track. I've got my suspension set up, so a big part of riding gravel roads is getting your suspension set up properly. Suspension is an important part of any type of riding, to be honest, but gravel roads in particular, because you get ditches and sharp objects and sharp rocks, and we'll talk about those in a second. So get your suspension set up, get the spring rates right, get the compression, rebound and preload correct, looking at rider and static sag. So let's talk gravel then. As you can see here, I've been doing various different types of body position on the bike. So there's a combination of standing and sitting. So on gravel, there are applications where being seated is a good position. Here, my friend Nigel is standing in a very relaxed position on the bike, which allows the suspension to be equally balanced and ride the gravel roads here. A very small criticism is that he's leaning his body there a little bit, and ideally with the heavier adventure bikes, you really want to get the bike lent underneath you and you stay a little bit more upright. Okay, Adam Riemann talks about it in some of his videos around body position and getting the bike, what he calls getting the bike set. So you set the bike early on gravel, you get it lent into the corner, yeah, your body stays upright, and that allows you to remain balanced, yeah, and then it allows the bike to move underneath you. And it varies a little bit as to speeds that you want to ride. So let's talk about speeds. Here I'm riding in the mountain passes in the Atlas Mountains, and there's some very serious consequences to missing a corner or getting a gravel corner wrong. Okay, so here I definitely reduce my speed on certain gravel roads. I'm just, there's too much risk involved. If you go off the edge here and you miss a corner, it's end of game type stuff. So riding gravel, when there's loose marbly stones, reduce the speed when the risks are too high. So manage that risk on gravel roads. That's a big part of riding gravel. As you can see here, I'm taking the outsides of the corners on gravel. So I'm going around the outside here, not cutting the inside of the corner. And the reason why I don't cut the inside of the corner is because rain on gravel tracks tends to follow the shortest path, and you end up with really bumpy, really jaggedy rocks on those insides of the corner. So take the outside of the corner, hug the side of the mountain, on a gravel track, because if you do lose traction, at least you've got 2 or 3 meters to your right to skid and stop, hopefully, before you disappear over the edge. So simple stuff like that. When it's a right-hand bend, I'm cutting towards the outside, but if it's a left-hand bend where the bike's going to want to move away from you, then I tend to take the inside line. Again, combination of sitting and standing. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Sometimes it is applicable to sit when off-road. It's like motocross riders. Motocross riders will stand through the really rough stuff, and then they will sit into the tighter corners so that they can get tight into the bike. They can get their, if you're a male rider, get your nuts on the tank, they say, and that puts better pressure into that front wheel and allows you to steer into the corner. As you exit the corner on gravel, you can stand up again or shift your weight more central to keep the bike balanced. Talk about keeping the bike balanced. On gravel, you are riding in a standard riding position with the suspension balanced, okay? You're not riding like the previous episodes where you're dropping your heels, lightening the front end. On gravel, you want a balanced suspension and you want a balanced ability to brake. You do need to be braking, and let's talk about braking. You do need to be braking with both brakes on gravel, not just rear biased. If you rear bias your braking, you're going to lock up, and on loose stuff like you can see here, there's marble type consistency, you're just not going to be able to brake if you're using your rear brake only. So you have to be using both. Your rear brake has to be subtle in terms of you mustn't lock it up, because on gravel it's going to want to skit away from you. So like in shaded areas like this, where visibility is a little bit lower and you can't really see if there's rocks under these trees and stuff, you've got to take into account visibility riding gravel roads, because braking hard on gravel is somewhat sketchy. The wheels will want to disappear from you. So that central riding position, that central balance, factoring in the light conditions, that's also a big part of it, and managing risk and speed. Here I'm riding a riverbed with like really loose gravel. It's those round alluvial stones that come down a river. Again, manage that risk, be in a neutral balance position, and enjoy your riding. Hopefully that helps. See you on the next one.